Hello and welcome to today's video. I hope you all are healthy. In today's video, I am going to demonstrate the step-by-step process to configure automated backup for Amazon EC2 instance and EBS volumes. We all know backup and recovery is a very important aspect for any IT infrastructure. If you follow today's session without skipping any part, you should be able to configure backup for your organization or for your job requirements. Before I start, I would like to request you, if you are new to our channel or haven't subscribed yet, then please subscribe to our channel and please click on the bell icon to get notification for any new topics. Let's get started and let's log into AWS Management Console and configure the automated backups for EC2 instances and for EBS volumes. I have logged in to my AWS Management Console. I have two EC2 instances. One EC2 instance where I am hosting the SQL Server or Microsoft SQL Server, and in one EC2 instance I am hosting the web server. In Microsoft SQL Server or the EC2 instance which is hosting SQL Server, I have a EBS volume, 30 GB EBS volume. I log into this EC2 instance and I'll validate the data. Then we'll create the backup plan. We'll create a backup, and once the backup will be created, we will restore the backup and we will validate if we have all the data that is backed up or not. Now I have logged in to the EC2 instance. It is a Windows EC2 instance. If you see the instance ID, it's end with BDCE, and here the instance ID is BDCE. So I am in the EC2 instance and I have a management console installed where I have created a test database. This is the database name, and the table name is person, where I have 4 columns. And if I'll see the data volumes, I have 3 person in my table. Now let's again go back to our AWS Management Console and set up the automated backup using AWS Backup. Now before I start, I'll create a tag for the SQL Server, and in this demonstration, I'll show the tag-based process. So let's say tomorrow, if you have multiple database servers, you do not have to create the backup for each and every EC2 instances separately. Rather, you can create the backup schedule and you can add the tag. Whichever the EC2 instance will have the tag, that EC2 instance will be automatically considered for the backup. Now let's create the tag. I'll give AWS Backup and the value will be yes. My SQL Server database, it has special tag AWS Backup equal to yes. This tag is missing in web server, and we are going to use AWS Backup to create automated backup. Now before I'll create, I would like to remind you one point. When you take backup of any EC2 instance, one AMI will be created, and if you are taking backup of any EBS volume, then snapshots will be created. As of now, I do not have a snapshots, but I have 2 EBS volumes that is attached with the 2 EC2 instances. I do not have an AMI also. I'll go to AWS Backup. From the search option, I'll type AWS Backup. Since I do not have anything in AWS Backup, I will create everything from the fresh. Let's first create a backup vault where all my backups will be stored. To create a backup vaults, from left hand side, I'll click backup vaults and then create backup vaults. First, I have to give a name. Maybe I'll give EC2 SQL Server backup vault. Now, if you want to encrypt all those backups, then you can select a KMS key. I'll go with the default KMS key. If you do not want encryption, that is also fine. Adding encryption will add extra benefits or will add extra security feature for you. For this demo, I'll encrypt backup vault and all the backups will be encrypted there. Now I have created the backup vault. If I'll go back, I'll see that EC2 SQL Server backup vault. Now let's go to dashboard and let's create the backup plan. First, if you have a template, you can use the template and create the backup, but I would like to show you from the scratch. That is why I'll create a new plan. Based on your organizational requirement, you can create AMI every day and maybe you can take the EBS volume backup every 1 hour. Now it's up to you. I will show you how to set up the frequency. You can set the frequency you want or required for your organization. First, I'll give a name, and this backup plan I am trying to create an AMI from the EC2 instance. I'll give the plan name as EC2 SQL Server Backup Daily. I'll give the same name in the backup rule. Now, what is the backup vault? I have created a backup vault for this purpose, or else you can go with the default one also. Coming to backup frequency, you can select any frequency you want. You can create hourly, you can create every 12 hours, daily, weekly, monthly, or even you can set up a custom cron expression also. For this example, I am going to take a backup using a cron expression, because if I'll wait for a day, then it will be too much wait for me to complete the video. That is why I am going to create a cron expression. I have set the cron expression. It will create the backup every 1 minute. Now you have option. You can automatically transfer those backup to cold storage. That means when you create those backup, by default, AWS will create the backup in S3. You won't be able to view those backup if you go and browse the S3 bucket. If you want to transfer those backup to cold tier, that means AWS S3 Glacier tier, that is possible, and you can set the rule. Maybe you can set after 90 days, you want to transfer that backup to Glacier, and you need a retention period. Maybe you want 100 days. You can see must be at least 90 days after transition to cold tier. So 90 days after maybe 10 days, you are transferring into cold tier, and then after 100 days, you are going to retain. Now, if you will have that much retention period, you can understand every minute I am creating a backup and I am retaining for next 100 days, it will end up storing multiple backups, right? That is why I am going to simply remove that, and I am going to keep a retention period for 1 day. Now, for disaster recovery, you want to copy that backup to a different region. That is also possible. You can simply select the region where you want. I do not have that requirement. Now, under advanced setting, please remember, if you are using any third-party software or Microsoft product, please tick that Windows VSS. If you are using a Linux-based EC2 instance, then that field is not required. But if you are using a Windows-based EC2 instance and any Windows product or any third-party software, please remember to select that Windows VSS. Now I'll create the plan. Next, I have to attach the resources, which will be backed up as part of the SQL Server backup plan. I'll add a name here, and I want to first back up the EC2 instances, right? Now you can either select all the resource types, everything under that, or you can select specific resource type. If you select specific, you can take backup of Aurora, DynamoDB, DocumentDB, EBS volume, EC2, EFS, FSX, Neptune, RDS, S3, storage gateway, and virtual machines or VMwares. Now I am going to take backup of EC2 instance here. Now under specific instances, either you can choose all the instances, or you can specifically choose the instance you want. If you remember, I have two EC2 instances, one for SQL Server and one for the web server. Now I can manually choose the SQL Server here, but the problem is, tomorrow if I will have another one database server, I have to again come and amend this backup plan, or I have to create a separate backup plan for the new EC2 instance. That is why I'll avoid this part. I'll go with all instance, but here I will refine a tag based approach. I'll select AWS Backup and the value is yes. Now with that, I am going to filter in my current scenario only the EC2 instance which has the SQL Server. Now if you are creating any new EC2 instance with SQL Server, and when you will add this tag, the new EC2 instance will be automatically considered for this backup plan. Now I'll assign the resource. this is a warning pop-up. It is saying your current selection could back up many resources and may have cost implications. So I'll select and I'll continue. Now I have created my first backup plan to back up the EC2 instance. If I'll go to backup plan, I can see my first backup plan has been created. Till today, there is no run. That is why last run time is blank here. Now what I am going to do, I am going to create another one backup plan, and this time for the EBS volumes. I'll create backup. Again, I'll select a new. This time I'll give SQL Server EBS volume backup plan. I'll copy the same name to the backup rule. Now let's select the backup vault. I'll select the previous backup vault, EC2 SQL Server backup vault. Coming to frequency, now you are taking the EC2 backup every day. Maybe you want to back up the EBS volume every hour or maybe every 30 minutes. Because if there is any database transaction that is going to store in your EBS volume, if you are taking a daily backup, when the disaster will strike, you will lose 24 hours of data or 24 hours of transaction. If you select a more frequent backup like every minute or every hour, in that time you will lose less transactional data, but you have to remember you are going to create multiple backups that is going to incur charge for you. Based on your requirement, you can select the backup frequency. For this demo, I am going to select hourly. So every hour, one EBS snapshot will be taken. There is an option I can directly transition to cold storage, but for this demo, I am not going to do. If you have a requirement, you can select that days. For retention period, I'll give 1 day. Since this EBS volume has Microsoft SQL Server, I am going to tick Windows VSS. And then I'll create the plan. Next, I have to assign the resources. This time, let's give a name EC2 SQL Server EBS volume. Coming to resource selection, either you can select all the resources or you can select specific resources. From the drop down, I'll select EBS volume. Now you can choose all the EBS volumes or we can choose a particular EBS volume from here. As I mentioned while creating the AMI, if you select a specific EBS volume, when new EC2 instance will come, you have to amend that rule and the new instance will not be part of that backup. We want a loosely coupled setup. We really do not want to tightly couple any backup plan with a specific instance. That is why we will go with tag based approach. Here I'll select all volume and from tag I'll select AWS Backup equal to yes. Now I'll assign the resource. Again the same warning pop-up. I'll click continue. If I'll go to backup plans, now I'll see I have created two backup plan. One backup plan for EBS volumes and one backup plan for EC2 AMI. The backup job has been triggered and it is creating our first AMI. If you remember, I have selected 1 minute for the AMI backup and 1 hour or hourly backup for the EBS. Now, since this backup is getting created, we'll use this backup and we'll try to restore one EC2 instance using this backup and we'll validate if all the data in the database is present in our backup instance. I will wait for the backup job to be completed and I'll come back once the backup process will be completed. In this screen, we have two aborted job and one new job started recently. What I found out, although I thought I have set up the cron expression for every 1 minute, but it was actually triggering every 5 minutes. On the other hand, backup job was also taking time to complete and it was overlapping one job with another. When one job was running, another one job was trying to trigger and it was getting failed. That is why I have aborted both the job and I have modified the cron expression. Now the new job has been started and let's wait for the job to be completed to get the AMI. It actually took more than 10 minutes. Now our first backup job successfully completed. If I'll go to backup vault, I should see one AMI should be created inside the backup vault. Now let's go to backup vault. This was the backup vault we have selected, and now we have one EC2 AMI that is already created. Now next step would be, let's try to restore that backup and create a EC2 instance out of this backup. I'll select that AMI, I'll go to action and I'll restore. Now while restoring, it will by default select the instance type, the VPC, the subnet and the security group, and also any IAM role. But if you want, you can change those parameters also. I'll go with the original configurations and I'll restore the backup. Now the restore process, again it may take 2 to 3 minutes. I'll pause that video and I'll restart when the restore process will be completed, and together we'll log in to the restored EC2 instance and validate the data in the SQL Server database. Now the restore job completed successfully. If we'll go to EC2 dashboard, we should see one new EC2 instance. It should be running. Here you go. So this is the new EC2 instance that is created as part of the backup job, and it is still in the initializing status. Now let's rename this EC2 instance. Just to identify, I have given that name as SQL Server from backup. Now I'd like to show you one more point here. If you see the previous SQL Server EC2 instance, it has a key pair, EC2 key pair. When you will take an AMI and again restore that AMI, it will restore with the same key pair. My restore EC2 instance, it also has the same key pair. Only the IP address it got changed. The previous EC2 instance has a public IP address of 44, 200, 229 and 12. You can see it has a new public IP address. I'll wait for the EC2 instance to complete the status check. I'll pause the video here and I'll come back when the status check will be completed successfully. EC2 instance completed the status check successfully. Now let's try to log into the EC2 instance using RDP. I'll copy the public IP address. Here you go. This is the new EC2 instance that we are trying to log in now. Let me bring back the previous EC2 instance. This was the original EC2 instance where we have the database was running. And this is the new EC2 instance which we have created from the backup. I think the EC2 instance is ready now. I'll type management and Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio will appear. Now I'll try to open that SQL Server Management Studio. SQL Server Management Studio is opening. It may take a couple more minutes. Now let's try to log in using Windows authentication. We'll connect. It should connect the SQL Server database. Now it is connected. We'll browse the databases. Then we'll go to database, system databases. Under master, we should see the table DBO parts. This was the table from our previous EC2 instance. Now I'll explore the data. Here you go. We have all the three data which was there in the previous database. If I'll bring the previous database and side by side tally, you can see this is the data from the previous databases. What we have created a automated backup using AWS Backup, and this is the new EC2 instance what we have launched from that backup, or we have restored that backup and launched, and we can see all the data from the database that is restored into the process. So this is the complete end-to-end process. If you want to configure automated backup for your EC2 instance and EBS volume, you can follow this process, and with that process you can set up a backup recovery strategy for your organization or for your job where you have any requirement. Now we came to a conclusion about today's topic. I hope I was able to clarify all your doubts. If you have any question regarding today's topic, please post your question as comment to this video. We will answer at earliest. Before we conclude today, I would like to request you please subscribe our channel and please click on the bell icon to get notification for new topics. If you want me to cover any topics, please provide your request as a comment on this video. If you appreciate our effort, please like this video. It will definitely motivate us. At the end, thank you. Please take care and stay safe.